now got a joint presentation between Ericsson and Etisalat, so I'd like to introduce Frans and George, so I'll just hand over to them, and over to you. There you go.
Okay. So, I'm here to talk about identities, a case for identities, and why it's interesting for telcos to be active in identity management, being an identity provider. So I'll go through a number of studies, an overview from the Ericsson Consumer Lab, and these kind of reports, they are available also on the internet, so you can look at them as well. So my name is Frans de Rooij. As Alan said, I am Dutch, based in Sweden, born in Australia, so also pretty complicated. So strategic product manager in the service enablement area. Business unit support solutions. So Ericsson is a company which was founded a long time ago, and we have been busy since quite a number of years in what we call the network society. So what we're saying of the network society is that it basically took us about 100 years to reach 1 billion connected places. Another 10 years to reach 5 billion connected people. And by 2020, we should reach over 5 billion connected devices. Yesterday, I think we heard from Axiata that we were talking about 8 billion. Well, maybe it's like that, but it's going to be an enormous amount. And there's definitely a need for identities here. Okay, one of the studies for the Ericsson Consumer Lab looked at connected lifestyles. And if we look at the number of different countries that were investigated here, like in the US, they looked at people in Chicago, in Brazil, people in Sao Paulo, and in Indonesia, Jakarta. And they looked at how are people using really the internet and how frequent do they do that. And they're quite impressive numbers, and what's perhaps interesting to see is that in Indonesia, they are actually most on the internet, like more than three hours per day. So if we look at what's happening during the day, people get up in the morning, they check their emails, they maybe check the weather forecast, then they go and commute, and while they commute, they listen to Spotify or something like that. Then they go to work, and of course they do their work stuff, but they also they check their social media. And after work, they commute back, maybe check some further emails, private emails as well. And then they're going to go to a restaurant or go and eat somewhere, and they pay with their mobile phone. And then in the evening, they do some more shopping online, they watch a movie, etc. So there's lots of things happening in this space. A very recent Consumer Lab study, so this is just less than a month old, it looked at, okay, where are people really doing this? And what are they doing now? So this study found out that actually 25% of the people, they are really busy with social media while they work. So you can really see that the lines between the professional life and the private life are blurring. 12% are even shopping online while they are at work, shopping online for their own sake. But then on the other hand, 23%, they do work-related tasks in the evenings. And probably most of you also did that last night while you're in a hotel room. So a lot of people are using the internet. They use this in different ways. They use multiple screens to do all kinds of different tasks. And they as I said, multiple screens, so they use mobile phones, they use tablets, they use PCs, maybe TVs. Then we come to the area of personal information. Because personal information, there's a whole economy around this. And I think we just saw in the demo, there was already quite some personal information used, if you listen to the announcement back. So I did hear quite some information about myself, which is already immediately available. So personal information for most of the consumers, it's quite obscure of what is really there and how it's used. But the industry, it's using it to to do commercials, advertisements, and also to personalize the services. This personal information economy, this leads to new kinds of business opportunities. And one is information gateway. So using the information about a subscriber, do stuff with that, with partners. Of course, respecting privacy concerns. Digital identification, which is the main topic for our session here. Then protection and insurance. What if your identity gets compromised? Who do you turn to? A trusted authority, like a telco. And working with a personal cloud. A lot of text on this slide, but the key things are digital identity, it's about safety, it's about use for different kinds of applications. It can be government applications, payment applications, social media type applications. And you need a trusted partner to do this. And according to most people actually, there are just a few parties that can deliver this kind of trust. One of them is banks, and for instance, in the Nordic countries in Europe, we have Bank ID, which is used for all kinds of services to do authentications, but also telco operators have that capability. Because banks and operators, they have physical branches where you can do strong authentication. Here we have the mobile identity solution that we have, and this can be deployed at an operator, or it can also be used in the cloud. And we have George here from Etisalat, who's going to talk about the cloud deployment that they are using. But it's basically using different attributes like user attributes, subscriber attributes, privacy consent management, and then it does authorization checks, entitlement checks, authentication over different means like using GBA, generic bootstrapping architecture, the USSD channel, SMS, or the SIM card. And then we use OpenID Connect to actually federate them with all kinds of other applications. So exposing a mobile network identity. So we can do that as a network identity like Etisalat is doing, like an Etisalat identity. You can also have it one level up as a national identity, like Assure UK. And then the third step is the global identity. And this is also what we're working with GSMA on GSMA Mobile Connect. And the cloud-based platform that we are making available is adopted by GSMA in this respect. And George is also working with that. So what we are providing there is a development kit for different devices. You can onboard or you can create your own mobile ID, and then you have self-care clients on the mobile and clients on the web to work with the Mobile Connect Accelerator. Now I'm going to hand over to George, and George is going to talk about Etisalat and what they're doing in this respect.
Thanks a lot. Thank you, Frans. Yep. Okay, perfect. So while we're setting up, let me just share with you what Etisalat is. We don't have a fancy British accent, and probably no one of you in Europe heard about us. We operate only in 23 countries in emerging markets. And we're not using the terms emerging markets and developed markets. We're calling it fast-growing countries and slow-growing countries. So we operate in the fast-growing markets. Our territory ranges from the most advanced countries, kind of UAE, for example, where Dubai is where we have the tallest building in the world, where we have the fastest highway, where we have the biggest aquarium, the biggest car, the only and the biggest man-made island, all those the best and the greatest things, to the places like Nigeria and Pakistan, where we have the best level of crime, the best, globally best internet crime, cybercrime level. So all this exciting place. So 23 markets, fast-growing markets, 160 million customers. Last year revenue, $20 billion. Kind of just, and in the interest of full disclosure, we're a shareholder in Axiata Group also. So why Mobile Connect, why Mobile Identity, and why we as a MNO are looking into this stuff? As a Etisalat, as a traditional GSM operator, we understand that business is dead. So in 3 years, 5 years from now, it's going to be full commodity, nobody going to use it, and it's all going to die. And the guys like Google's and Facebook with all of those fancy new things are going to just totally kill GSM stuff. It's a clearly understand. So we have a couple of years to actually build the new things. And in Etisalat, we created a special unit called Etisalat Digital, similarly what Telefonica, Axiata, anybody else has, which looks at the life after GSM. So in the life after GSM, we see there are two places where operators can actually play a role. One is consumer finance services. And again, because we are working in the fast-growing market, so for us, Apple Pay and all of those American things, it's not really relevant. And identity. Because in the future, the only things which we're going to be trading identity of the people. So not to be laughed at because we have lots of Lego type of slides. I'm just going to skip majority of them. Though we have a really nice layout of the slide, and I paid lots of money to the creative agency to put all those nice pictures. There are lots of work we are doing together with Ericsson on identity management. And one is a low-level security identity, and which is usually used by kind of social networks and some online channels like Financial Times, Yahoo, just to make sure they bill for their transactions. And they're growing all the way to the highest level of security and identification used by the banks. And the word banks and financial services for us is a key important. Again, compared to the slow-growing markets, in our markets, majority of financial transactions are done on the mobile phones. So Etisalat, we provide a service called Flus, which is in Arabic or in French, le flux. It also means money. And we operated on 18 million customers. We're providing the service right now. So actually, if you look, Etisalat is the biggest bank in the world. So in our markets, mobile phone is identity instrument. So we're looking at identity and the financial services in one perspective from this angle. So what we have done, and again, I'm going to skip all the theoretical slides. We took two services, two financial services, which are live in operation. None of this is theory. We're doing around 2 to 3% of GDP in majority of the countries where we're running service through those ones. So I'm going to try to run the ad. We didn't rehearse it. And anybody speaks Arabic here? Good. So you'll understand.
خد يا كريم الفلوس دي وصلهم لجدك في البلد.
دلوقتي وانت في مكانك مع خدمة فلوس تقدر تحول كاش من موبايلك لأي موبايل اتصالات وتسحب الكاش من أي فرع من فروعنا أو فروع البنك الأهلي المصري. اتصالات الدنيا لسه فيها أكتر.
So 80 million people in the country called Egypt are using the service to do the transactions. Yeah. So this is one of the services, and the people are sending money between the different elements of the country and sending the money across. So this is one of the services, and obviously authentication is key important because this is where the funds are being transferred. Another service which we're using, we call it mobile cashier. In a kind of slow-growing market, they call it Square. In our market, we call it mobile cashier because it's a different technology, which is kind of really funny. In the States, it's a big discussion about introducing chip and PIN and EMV cards, which it's absolutely normal point of life in our countries for the last 10 years, but I guess it's a big technology revolution in the States. So our version of Square, which is live in many markets, and when you'll see the ad, you'll understand why the authentication and identity of the customer is key important.
أنا هعدي الشارع أشحن الموبايل. أي حد يحاسب بالكارت أقول له لا كاش بس.
I'm leaving the office. Only way you can accept is cash. Don't take cash.
بناخد كارت طبعا هو حساب حضرتك كام؟
ده اتصالات موبايل كاشير، زي مكنة الكريدت كارد، توصلها بتليفونك وعدي فيها الكارت، وبكده مفيش بيع هتطير منك. اتصالات، كل يوم جديد.
So what we have done, we took a core applications which we Etisalat are using as a part of the day-to-day life. It is our Flus, our mobile money, 18 million customers, our mobile cashier, and our self-service application. We combined them together and gave one access to all of our customers to this application. So what customer actually sees is mobile connect app on his mobile phone, and every time he is accessing the applications, he is asked what kind of credentials he wants to share. So, and those credentials are used later on for KYC, AML, and management of the customer profile. So this is very important for us because from this perspective, customer stays in the control of their identity. So he gives certain information to the bank, he gives different information to the social network, and what's really important in all of this information is fully auditable and controllable. So if you're a software developer and you're working with a Facebook and using Facebook ID as a main of authentication, it's a great and exciting. My Facebook ID is Cool George, and I wish it is going to be actually the true case. And so the Facebook identity is very good if you want to impersonate 19-year-old blonde girl and you're a 40-year-old middle-aged man. So from this perspective, using a truly controllable identity actually works great, and it's going to be applied to the real cases. Also, if you're a developer and you're using Facebook identity, and obviously it's one of the Facebook strategy to own the identity management, and all of your business cases, which we're going to go to venture capitalists, then none of them going to pass, because Facebook changes the rules of the game 3 times a day and sends the different terms and conditions. So from this perspective, having something from the trusted and controllable place where MNOs actually are, actually delivers true value to both application development community. So you have a properly source of the information which is controllable, auditable, for which you can charge money, because national security, because of KYC, know your customer, financial institution, they all using the service on one side, and because of the reach which you have due to relationship with the MNO. At the end of the day, we are MNOs, we control like majority of the infrastructure of the country. In majority cases, we're owned by the government. In majority cases, we represent the government, so the certain trust associated with the brand of MNO is actually brings the relationship and brings the trust to the identity to the different level. So just to finish my short presentation, there are a couple of points which I really like to stress. For MNOs, the GSM business is dead, and we have a couple of years to kind of ramp it up and move to the different stage of business. And we, as Etisalat, we believe that consumer finance and identity are the 2 main areas where we believe we can live and deliver value to our markets after GSM days. We believe that the quality of the data used for the consumer profile and consumer profile management in both virtual and physical world coming with the MNO has substantial value, and we have a proven record for this one in majority of the fast-growing economies. Maybe it's not applicable to slow-growing countries, but in the fast-growing economies where we represent really local relationship with the consumers, the value is really phenomenal, and we always encourage both of our colleagues, MNOs across the footprint, to create global solution. We're doing it right now across 23 countries. We're working with other big telco groups to bring it really, truly global, and GSM is driving it to bring it really global across the footprint. So only together, we as a community can have a competition with the other identity sources like Facebook and Google. So those are the main points from my side, and I strongly encourage both application developers and telcos to join us together to make sure that the service actually delivers true value to the consumers in a really meaningful way in the future. Thank you.
Do we have any questions? And of course.
I think it's really interesting, and I think for some use cases, the telecoms identity is very, very useful. I think for other use cases, Facebook and Twitter are more appropriate. Yeah, so if I'm sharing music on Spotify, then Facebook's a good one. What happens with portability? When I churn operators, does my either if I keep my number or if I switch my number, or if I've got two numbers and I've got two phones, what happens?
Okay, so the portability, for us as a MNO, it makes no difference, because even if you move number from one operator to another, your KYC elements are still staying with the operator. I would disagree on one aspect about sharing music and sharing confidential information, because again, using Facebook, Twitter type of identities, for the free services it makes sense. But all the app developers, one of their main drivers for their businesses is to drive revenue. So if you cannot deduct money from some account and you cannot fund it, it's almost impossible to operate.
Sure, but I mean, there's no way that I would want to comment on an online telecoms industry blog using my Vodafone identity. Yeah, I want to use Disruptive Dean on Twitter or whatever, or my LinkedIn or whatever.
Of course, but not for financial service when you want to have money behind this, because the bank on another end wants to know that this is actually you. And also all of those big brother type of organizations, they want to know where the source of the funds are, where the funding are going, and that's why FATCA and all other great things recently introduced in the slow-growing countries really
You're in a slow-growing country, I'm afraid. Any other questions? Oh, we have one at the back.
Yeah, it's more a comment than a question. It's, well, I live in China, and the good thing about living in China is you can enjoy the homegrown services like WeChat. And I was sharing with some of you yesterday that WeChat has a very clear monetization strategy, and especially using their authentication capability. So they've been starting with freemium services. Then you can do things such as checking online with your airline or checking your bank accounts with your WeChat service. And the next step is to be a payment method also with small transactions. So the comment is, it's true, operators have a trusted authentication capability, but we're not the only one. And I think the window of opportunity for that is not so long. So it's just a wake-up call to act fast.
That's a very good point, Christoph. So just endorsing what you were saying, especially for fast-growing markets. So any other questions? Okay, Anat.
I wanted to know how accurate is the KYC norm with an operator in Etisalat, because consumers, they can, under the age of 18 years, are they allowed to have a mobile phone? Because in India it's a regulation.
It is country by country specific. So for example, it's country like UAE, United Arab Emirates, everybody has a national ID. If you don't have national ID with a national ID card, scan your iris, fingertips, all those great things, you cannot have your mobile phone. Phone is not going to be operational. You cannot even live in the country. So from this perspective, it's 100% accurate, and we just recently went in majority of our markets through something called My Number, My Identity, where in line with the regulatory regime, we requested all customers to come to our office and to re-register themselves. And if they don't come and re-register until a certain day, obviously we're trying to invite them 2 or 3 times, but after this we're forced to disconnect them. So from the principle garbage in, garbage out, we clearly understand it. So from this perspective, KYC data is extremely accurate and correct, especially because in emerging markets, we use a mobile phone as a payment instrument. And this one is all the customer data is properly controlled, not only at the level of MNO, but also is controlled by the bank. And there are certain sanction screening lists on the customer due diligence on all the elements, which are fully passed through. So if somebody is a MNO customer with a mobile wallet, we're 100% sure that his KYC is absolutely accurate.
Excellent, thank you. So let's show appreciation for an excellent set of presentations.